Happy Monday, everybody. It's time for another edition of Ask Mike. Courtney Mims alongside Mike Irwin here. And Mike, we're very excited because I didn't think we would be talking basketball.
Still talking
Basketball because the Hogs are headed to the Sweet 16. And I'll be there in San Francisco all next week providing live coverage for Pig Trail Nation, KNWA.
On one side of the country, back here, over to the other side.
Yeah, it's impressive, right? You know, thanks, Mike. I appreciate
I think when
that.
you get back, you'll tell me you like Providence better than San Francisco.
I think you might be right on
that. Because San Francisco has a lot of stuff, but there's a lot of weirdos there.
Yeah, I've heard all the things. But again, if you want to follow along with me in San Francisco, again, the Pig Trail Nation team will have you covered with all the coverage that you could possibly want out there in San Francisco, and maybe, dare I say, they make a Final Four. We get to go to San Antonio as well. That's a little looking ahead. But first, let's talk about what happened in Providence, shall we? Our first question is from Mousetown, who asks, were the refs trying to give the game to St. John's? I know they had the crowd behind them, but come on. It's the NCAA. But like my coaches always said, you can't change bad calls. You have to overcome it. The Hogs did.
Yeah, there were a lot of mad Razorback fans about that. But actually, when you went back and looked, there wasn't a huge imbalance in the number of free throws for either team. It was 31. St. John's shot 31 free throws, Arkansas 27. That's for the game. But there was an imbalance in the second half. And what was weird was Charles Barkley comes on at halftime and gives the refs all kinds of props for letting them play. And then they didn't let them play, especially in the second half. But it wasn't so much the number. It was just or an imbalance. It was just the way the whole flow of the game just suddenly started getting interrupted over and over again. And it seemed to benefit St. John's. Arkansas would get an 8, 9, 10-point lead. Then here'd come all the whistles, and the next thing you know, they're coming back a little bit. It also impacted the game because Jonas Adu was one of the ones that got targeted. He had 2 fouls in the first half.
And Big Z.
Z fouled out, but it was Adu that had played so well against Kansas. You know, he goes from playing 39 minutes, scoring 22 points against Kansas, 22 minutes and 7 points against St. John's. Now, he still played good defense and rebounded. But that hurt Arkansas. Potentially could have cost him the game. I thought it was going to. I thought he was going to foul out. He did a good job of not getting that 5th foul.
Well, yeah, you had Jonas Adu playing on 4 fouls. You had DJ Wagner playing on 4 fouls. You had,
and that's the other thing that made Arkansas fans mad. It was like all of their scorers were suddenly in foul trouble.
Nellie Davis was playing on 4 fouls.
What was going on there?
Yeah.
So, you know, if you believe refs do that stuff on purpose, I never do. But it's just the heat of the moment when you're watching the game. You get mad. The point is that they did figure out a way to overcome all that. And one of the ways they overcame it was Billy Richmond. He scored 16 points as the leading scorer in the game. And that's one of the things that has helped this team going all the way back to the last few games when they got kind of on a little winning streak there in the end of the regular season. And they either won a lot of games or stayed really close to teams like Auburn and Alabama, because when one scorer, leading scorer, whatever, like Boogie Fland goes out, okay, he was out for a while, but then Thiero goes out. And, oh, you're suddenly without your leading scorer, but other people just step up and do it. And that's the thing. It now really, remember back when Cal was getting criticized because they used all this NIL money on these players? And it was like, oh, they've got so much money, but that's all they care about. They're not trying really hard and all this blah, blah, blah. You now see that roster really was talented. There were some young guys on this team, you know, that like Carter Knox and Billy Richmond, who are young guys that have gotten better and better and better and better. And if you don't have them, you don't have guys that suddenly, if DJ Wagner has a bad game, you don't have the guys that can suddenly step up. And that's what's allowed this team to win, is when one guy is neutralized a little bit, here comes another guy. And I got to believe it's hard to scout Arkansas, because when you target somebody like Wagner, then look what happens. Somebody else steps up. You know, Nellie Davis has a big game or whatever.
Or Jonas Adu. You know?
Adu, or if he doesn't, Brazil does. Mm-hmm. You know, so this team has a lot of talent on it. And I think Rick Pitino said that when the game was over. He said, look, we knew when we were scouting them that this wasn't some sort of we were the 2 seed and they were the 10, but we knew there wasn't some sort of a talent mismatch here.
But I think that goes back to what they've dealt with all year, right? What makes you better at stepping up when somebody doesn't have a great game? What makes you better at that? Dealing with a small rotation, dealing with those injuries. It kind of forces you in those situations, and that's what we were seeing early on in the season with Arkansas. We were seeing Arkansas forced into those situations, and now it's paying off when it matters the most. So let's go over to the next question because I think this is a good one here. This one is from, it doesn't say it on my paper, it's from Hog Redneck, who says, CBS is doing a ho-hum job of analyzing these games. After the St. John's game, they quoted a few stats and then scratched their collective heads over how Arkansas managed to win. The answer is there. You look.
Yeah, I remember that. And all 3 of those guys, and I'm talking about the halftime guys and the guys that come on the end, Barkley and those guys, they were sitting there like puzzled as to how Arkansas won that. But what they emphasized was the 28 offensive rebounds. How did Arkansas overcome the fact that they gave 28 offensive rebounds to St. John's? St. John's shot like 28% from the game, so it doesn't matter how many offensive rebounds go. And how many times did we see them? Rebound, 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 miss shot, miss shot, miss shot. So they kept missing those shots. So that neutralized that advantage. And then even though St. John's, I think, outscored Arkansas 18-13 on points off turnovers, on fast breaks, Arkansas was 11-5. And then assists, that's something that Patino mentioned. Arkansas had 10 assists to their 5s, and he said, we're not a good team when we don't have a lot of assists, and 5 is not good for them. Yeah. So agreed, there is a reason why Arkansas won that game. It looked like those guys were asleep, like maybe they were just over there drinking coffee or whatever they do during the game because they weren't paying much attention to the game.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. I didn't listen to the broadcast because I was there, obviously, at that game. But it's interesting just to hear what the national media is saying about Arkansas and how they're like, where did this team come from and all of that. And I'm like, guys, if you had watched the season and what they've been through and how they've been playing down the stretch, you would know.
Yeah, and this tournament in particular, and people say it's because of the portal, I don't know why, but there have been a lot fewer upsets than normal. And so you would think that Arkansas, with 2 upsets, because they were supposed to lose both of those games, especially the St. John's game, you'd think they'd play that up more than they have, but they didn't. And I don't know why.
Yeah,
other than it's Arkansas and maybe there's no people out here, so they figure they don't have to play it up. I've always felt like that the population, it's your TV footprint. It's how many TV homes do you have in your state as opposed to some other place. And these network people go on that. And it's like, we got to reach the maximum number of people. So we're going to talk up somebody from a state or an area with
like New York, like St. John's.
With a large number of TV homes as opposed to Arkansas, which has a small number of TV homes.
I think you have a point there, especially when I was talking to some of the New York people about St. John's. They were like, oh, this is New York's team, but this is almost America's team. And I'm going, what? What? In what world is that?
They need to get out and see America because the country is pretty big and there's no one team. There's no Americans team in college. But I'm telling you, even Duke, even UConn.
And that's what I said. I'm like, I get it, guys. You had a great season this year, but calm yourselves down.
When you have all these traditional basketball programs spread all over the country, you don't come in there and invade you don't go into Indiana and everybody becomes a St. John's fan.
Yeah, exactly.
That doesn't happen.
Exactly. Jimmy Hogball says, what a couple of games. These Hogs are for real. I don't look at a lot of message boards, so maybe you can tell me if the Kentucky haters have finally quit talking trash about Coach Cal.
First of all, congratulations on not reading the message boards, which I assume he also meant other forms of social media. That's what you should do. Don't read that stuff, and then you won't worry about it. No, they haven't toned it down. I honestly believe that if Arkansas won the national championship, some of them would still find little things to be picky about. But what they mostly would do is go sit back in the weeds or the shade and wait for the next time Arkansas lost a game, if it's sometime next year, and then they'll come out and start criticizing. Well, they lost this game because Cal did this and it was so stupid. Remember back when they got all over him, the deal about Nellie Davis intentionally missing the free throw
Oh, yeah.
when he should have tried to make it, because then it puts the game out of reach. And we all believe that Cal was just protecting him based on what we saw happen when it happened, because he was mad. But, you know, regardless, even if he really did that, I mean, that's one little bitty thing, but that's what these people are doing. They're looking for reasons to say that a guy can't coach, that the game has passed him by. And the opposite is true. Everywhere you look, if you really examine what's happened this season and what's happened going into the NCAA tournament and through these first 2 rounds, you can't sit there and say the guy doesn't know how to coach. He just didn't stumble out with this team and stumble into these wins. I mean, every time they call a timeout, how many times they come out of a timeout with a set play and make a basket?
Yeah, he's not. Everyone who says he's a bad coach, I laugh at that. You can't be a bad coach and do what you did this year. You can't. I mean, ask anybody who knows the game of basketball. They will sit there and say you cannot be a bad coach and do what he did this year.
That's right.
That was impressive. I will say, Mike, I'm going to give a little credit here where credit is due. I have seen some Kentucky fans on social media who have gone, all right, Arkansas fans, we both made the Sweet 16. You with Coach Cal, us with Coach Pope, ceasefire. Can we all agree ceasefire?
Some of them, yeah.
Some of them. And so I actually think that's kind of funny. I'm like, all right, I'll give some credit to those people that are like, ceasefire, we both made the Sweet 16. Can we both be happy? So I know there are some that are not that way, because KY Hog chimes in on this and says, Kentucky fans are still crazy jealous of Cal and Arkansas around here. They're coming up with all kinds of nutty reasons to put us down. They're the worst.
Yeah, and again, to play off of what you were saying, if you go on the internet, and I go on Facebook a lot, there are various Facebook websites, like we have one that has about 100,000 people that follow it.
Yeah.
And so you get responses, you'll get 100 responses to a story. And then I don't think a lot of people go into somebody's personal Facebook, but where people post on that, and then X is just wide open. So if you go in there, you're going to find a really wide divergence of reactions. And I think what we've got some of those that I want to put up. Yeah, this is, again, I didn't put the name of these people down here. I don't want to embarrass them, but this was from the internet on Cal. And the first one is, money can get players but can't buy brains for a coach that's let the game pass him by. So that's a Kentucky fan, I can tell you that, and that was his reaction even after Arkansas did all this stuff. So
yes.
no, they're not going to stop guys like that. Okay, we got another one here.
Oh, we got more. You picked
and
more.
this is more like what you were saying.
Yeah.
I love Cal. I did not want him to leave Kentucky. He was a class act. When they basically asked him to leave, he left what money he had on his contract and said, keep it. Yeah. And I made that point earlier, that he didn't say anything bad when he left. He didn't act like a jerk. They didn't have to pay him any kind of buyout or anything. A lot of them wanted him to fire him. Well, they saved all that money because he didn't get bought out, because he quit. And he just came here, and Arkansas paid him.
And he didn't even say anything bad about them.
No, he did
when
not.
He came here. He could have
So
absolutely
that's been the most
mean.
puzzling thing. They wanted him gone. He leaves. He doesn't cost them any money, and then all they want to do is throw shade on the guy. But some don't do that.
Is there another one too?
Yeah,
I saw 3.
There's one more comment. This is from actually a Razorback fan, believe it or not.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
He has been a money grabber since he left Memphis on probation. Took all his recruits too. I'm a Hogs fan, absolutely. But in the end, if you lie down with dogs, you will end up with fleas.
Ooh.
I don't see a lot of fleas around here right now.
Oh, dang.
There's no probation stuff. There's nobody, they didn't mysteriously lose when they should have won. There's no fleas. I don't know what he's talking about. I guess he's looking back when he was at Memphis and saying, well, I mean, that was decades ago, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of coaches. If you want to give that
Coaches
response,
leave all the time.
The coaches leave all the time, and
they take players with them.
They take players with them, and also not every single one of them. While many have not, gotten under fire from NCAA, it doesn't mean every one of them is perfect and is following all the rules and doing everything the right way. So I'm going to say
I don't
that
know,
too.
I haven't seen any fleas around lately.
I mean,
but it's too cold.
If they are, we don't know about them.
But in a month, the fleas will be in my backyard. We have to spray for them because we have dogs.
Oh yeah, absolutely. TL Slayton wants to know: did John Calipari suddenly turn into a better coach? No question, he was having trouble his last few years at Kentucky, especially in the NCAA tournament. Now it's like he's the Calipari before Kentucky fans turned on him.
Well, I think the difference is he got out of that toxic Big Blue Nation environment. If you think about it, when you have that job, you walk around with a boat anchor on your foot everywhere you go because it's that fan base. And everything you do that doesn't turn out perfect, they start yanking on that boat anchor, pulling on the chain. And so you go into the NCAA tournament. To me, that Oakland loss last year was the typical setup for the NCAA because it's a mismatch on paper. But you go out somewhere where your fans aren't there and their fans, and I've talked about this before because I've been in NCAA environments. And what happens is you only got a certain number of tickets that your fans can get. They don't just give out tickets to everybody. A lot of those tickets are sold locally they're sold on a corporate basis.
Yeah, sure.
And then they're distributed to people that work for these places. And so you get these fans that come into a game and they're not for any team. I saw that out in Boise more than once.
I have an example of that. I was talking to a guy who's a Providence Friars season ticket holder, which is the arena that they were using. Providence plays there for their home games. And he said all the season ticket holders got first pick of what they wanted. So he went to the games as a fan of nobody. He ended up turning into a Razorback fan, by the way, for all those Hog fans.
That's sort of what happens.
Yeah, exactly.
Again, twice I was in Boise, and none of the teams there were anywhere from around there. Well, I watched real carefully as the game progressed, and in every single case, the underdog team, the fans, started supporting that team, which made it difficult for the higher seeded team. And I think that's what happened. I think that's what happened to Kentucky last year against Oakland. You go there, those fans, it suddenly turns into a road game, and the team is pretty good, and they get fired up, and you lose. But I think also he goes into there with tugging that boat anchor, he goes in knowing we got to win this game or they're going to go nuts. And I think that was the thing that finally convinced him, I got to get out of here. So he comes here, and I'm not saying it was perfect. And yes, some fans turned on him a little bit, but not very many. And I think he was just loose and able to have fun. It's a new start. And you don't go walk around with that boat anchor hanging on your leg. I'm telling you, there's no basketball fans anywhere like Kentucky fans. I've been around them. I'm telling you, they are unforgiving. They want you to win every game. I mean, they're annoying when they interact with other people's fans, but I've told people for years I would not want to be any coach at Kentucky because they turn on you when you don't win. They turned on Mark Pope after Arkansas beat them up there. And I'm telling you, if they lose this next game, they'll turn on them. They want them to go, and they're the only ones playing an SEC team next, right?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, I think so.
So, I mean, that'll be tough. I mean, the further SEC teams get into this thing, you're going to have to start playing each other unless they get knocked out. And I think I'd have to go back and look, but I think they're the ones that end up having to play an SEC team. So if they lose that, they're going to be mad at him.
Yeah.
And so that's just the way it is. Anybody that takes that job knows that, though. Mark Pope knew that for sure.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is when you look at him, it's not like he turned into a new coach or anything. I think when you talk to many coaches, my dad will tell you this as well, that sometimes when you get a new job, you leave a place that was kind of toxic, right?
Yeah.
And you get a new job, you have a renewed energy that you go in and you're like, I want to win. I want to prove those people back there that, hey, look what you're missing out on.
It's like you were in a long relationship with a girlfriend. She just annoyed you. Every time you went on a date, she went, why are we going here? I don't like your car. Why don't you get a new car? And it just never stops and never stops and never stops. So you finally get a new girlfriend and everything's fun again, right? She's not questioning anything, and she likes where you take, what movie you take her to and all that stuff. I mean, I hadn't been on a date like that in 100 years, but I remember it.
What? Not even with your wife?
No, I'm talking about back when I was in high school. When you go from one girlfriend, I had this girlfriend that was a cheerleader, the best looking cheerleader. And everybody's like, oh, you're so lucky to be dating her. She was awful. I'm telling you, rude. Everything was about her, and she liked algebra, and I hated algebra. What? You go on a date with a girl and she's talking about algebra problems, and I'm just going, am I going crazy? What is going on here? And so finally, she actually dumped me because I talked to some of my friends and I said, I got to get rid of this. Girls, you're driving me. Going, oh, you'll look stupid if you do that. Everybody will laugh at you. I'm going, okay, because in high school you listen to your buddies.
Yeah.
And then she dumped me. And then as soon as she dumped me, all these other girls came up and started saying, man, I was wondering when you were going to get rid of her. And I said, well, I didn't. She got rid of me. Well, she's terrible.
Oh, my goodness.
You know, and then suddenly all these girls are being nice to you, and you're going, oh, why did I put up with that? Well, that's what this is like, you know?
Yes.
You got a new girlfriend. John Calipari has a new girlfriend. These are Razorback fans.
And they're Razorback fans.
And they're treating him great.
I love it. I did not know we would get an old
Yeah,
Mike Irwin
that's so
girlfriend
old.
story today, but I'm really happy
It's so
we did.
old, it's hard to remember all that
No,
stuff.
no, I love it. I'm so glad we got one of those stories on Ask Mike. It's not a good Ask Mike without one of those great Mike Irwin stories. Eddie Lynn wants to know, oh, I'm glad you asked, Eddie Lynn. What happened to all those who said that Boogie Fland would disrupt Arkansas's team chemistry, like Lenardi, who said Arkansas would be one and done because of Cal's decision to play Fland? And that was, Mike, that was a
so
stupid comment.
Now look, I admit it more than once on here that I really questioned whether or not Boogie, after sitting out all of that time, could really be a meaningful contributor. It's just hard to do that. But when Cal explained how it was going to work, and then we saw how it worked, he didn't just stick him out there for 33 minutes and tell him to run the point and tell him to take 8 shots in a game or whatever. He really eased into that job. And he just kind of hung around and helped however he got some assists. He got a couple of back doors, hit a couple of shots, and nothing shocking, but just helped. And it allowed other guys to go to the bench and rest. To think that Cal was so stupid that he was like, I'm playing Boogie Fland, and he sticks him back in there at point guard and plays him 38 minutes, and they're getting beat, and he doesn't do anything about it. No, that was the dumb part of what Lenardi said.
Yeah, it was just stupid. I mean, I get it. You worry about what it's like with him coming back because the team has been playing well without him. I get that. I understand. But to say what he said and just to not realize, like, I put a long rant about it on social media because I was kind of like, what are you thinking? Because anything that this guy can do that will help the team is good, is a good thing.
But to think that Cal would put him in, he would go out and miss 4 straight shots.
And not take him out of the
That
game.
he'd turn the ball over and get 4 fouls, and he'd go, oh,
keep him in there, need him. No,
and then when the game's over, the analysts get on, the CBS guys get on there and say, well, should have never played Boogie. He cost him the game.
But yeah, my point to Lenardi on that is if he's affecting the game positively, he will play. If he comes in the game and affects it negatively, he will not play. But he adds, if he is healthy and good, which we saw, you know, he came in and affected the game positively in both those games. He had that big bucket to end the first half, and he had a nice steal on a St. John's inbounds play.
He set up Adu with a really good assist.
Yeah, that was also very beautiful.
I see him getting more and more comfortable, and I think maybe he'll play a really good game in a more important role against Texas Tech, because that's an up-tempo team.
It is.
That's going to be 2 teams where the guards become really important. Two games. That's going to be a game where the guards on each team become more important.
But now you've played him. You've got 2 games under his belt.
Yeah.
He's feeling more confident. I talked to him in the locker room. He feels good, and he is willing to contribute however this team needs him. That's not a bad thing to me. So Lenardi, I don't know what you were doing there.
He needs
okay?
to own up to that.
Yeah, he does. Razor Alex 88 says, down goes Cansaw. Oh yeah, I went there. Oh, it's so hard to be humble, especially when you have KU's number. I would say Coach Cal was extra motivated to shake off the gorilla off of his back after first-round exits in the past.
Okay, let's go into this Cansaw thing because some people may not understand that. That goes all the way back in baseball to when Arkansas and Wichita State were rivals and used to play each other a lot. So Arkansas would go up there for tournaments or just a 3-game series in the non-conference part. And I think there was an NCAA regional out there more than once. And so what would happen is Arkansas fans would get up there and the Wichita State fans would be referring to Cansaw, Arkansas, you know, and they would make fun of it. So I think it was an NCAA regional. And I was at the hotel room after they have a day where everybody just works out. And then you go back to your hotel room and I'm watching the 10 o'clock news. And the weatherman actually referred to the Arkansas River as the Arkansas River. The Arkansas River.
What?
Yes, the Arkansas River. And that's what That's what the Kansas fans would say. The Wichita State fans would call the Razorback fans in the game. They would say, Arkansas, Arkansas, Arkansas. I said Kansas earlier. That's what he's doing.
Yeah.
But it was Arkansas. Everything is not Arkansas, it's Arkansas.
I hate
and
that.
I think they were doing it to insult them. But then when the guy said 3 times on his weathercast, the Arkansas River, I started thinking to myself, maybe he actually believes that. And so I've never run into anybody from Kansas and thought to ask them that question, but do they really believe that the state of Arkansas, it's pronounced Arkansas? And do they believe the Arkansas River is Arkansas River? Arkansas River? Do they really believe that?
I have not talked to any Kansas fans who believe that. I know that they know it's pronounced Arkansas, the Kansas people
because I don't know. It was just weird when the guy's doing weather and he says the Arkansas River 3 times.
You would think a weather guy would know.
Yeah, and I thought maybe they just really think that's what it is around here.
No, there's no way. He might have been making
Well,
fun
anyway,
of it.
that's the reference to people from Kansas insulting Arkansas fans by referring to their state as Arkansas.
Yeah, but now it's renamed Arkansas. You know?
Arkansas.
Yeah.
Arkansas.
Or it's Kansas. Sorry, now you're getting me confused. It's Kansas.
Kansas.
It's Kansas now, yeah.
Yeah, Kansas becomes Kansas.
Yeah, Kansas is now Kansas.
So we can do it to them.
Yeah, exactly. It
So
is
now you
yeah.
know if you're in Kansas, just refer to Kansas as Kansas.
Kansas. Yeah, that's exactly.
Give it right back to them.
Exactly. I would definitely do that. You know, try not to tick anybody
That was
off
a very
too much.
confusing segment, by the
Yeah,
way.
because I'm trying to think. Arkansas, Kansas.
Arkansas, Kansas.
That was hard. That was very. If you kept up with us, thank you. Just,
We were going around in circles.
Yeah, blame it on my jet lag right now. And WV Hog fan asks, what do you have to say to the haters that were ready to give up on this team and the coaches in January? How many programs can say they have gone to 4 Sweet 16s in the last 5 years?
Well, first of all, I want to talk about that 4 and 5 because 4 and 5 years because you got to give Musselman credit.
Yeah.
If you go back to Eddie Sutton era, when I got here right at the start of Eddie Sutton's era and then went all the way through to Nolan, that was 27 years of basketball, and about 24 of those years they were in the NCAA tournament, okay? That was a heck of a run, and people got used to it. And then Nolan got fired and it went away, and it went away for a long time. And so what you have to give Eric Musselman credit for is he came back and put Arkansas back into the NCAA tournament, and they started winning games like they did in the old days. That's what he did. He got to an Elite Eight. He got to some Sweet 16s. And now Cal has come in here and gone to at least a Sweet 16. We don't know, maybe further. And there's a belief that he'll be back.
Yeah.
I mean, he's good in the NCAA tournament. So when you talk about where Arkansas is basketball-wise, I think you have to combine Cal and Muss, even though they were very different coaches. In my mind, I combine them because they both made the program relevant again. It really is. I mean, and it had reached a point where Arkansas was not even considered a basketball school by a lot of
people.
Yeah,
and
that was heartbreaking to a lot of Razorback fans.
Yeah.
But those two coaches have brought that back.
I think, and this is maybe, I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but I think if you didn't have Eric Musselman do what he did,
You might not have gotten Cal.
That's what I think. Yeah, absolutely. Because how can you get a coach like Coach Cal, who is his own brand in college basketball? We've talked about that. To come to a program like Arkansas, it's because of what Eric Musselman did. It's because of how much he brought them back that I think you got.
And I think if you know, we can't know what's going to happen, but I think now the way he's re-energized, and I personally believe because of revenue sharing, NIL is going to go away a little bit, and it's not going to be your ability to throw huge NIL money at people. I think a lot of these schools are going to have the same budget. You're going to go back to Cal's ability to do what? To go in and get freshmen who are one and done. He's still going to have to figure out a way to keep some of the guys that he has that aren't. You still got to recruit a guy that's not a 5-star. You still got to keep somebody around for 3 and 4 years.
And you still want that experience,
Yes.
right? Because that's true.
But I think he will know how to do that.
Okay.
He said, I'm never going to go back to the way I was, where I start 5 guys that are all freshmen.
You can't do that.
But he said, I am going to continue to recruit the top freshmen, and I'm just going to mix them up with other experienced players.
Yeah.
If he can do that for 5 years here, look what he can do with the program. He can put them back on a pedestal where they're right up there, with schools like Duke, right up there with schools, I hesitate to say North Carolina because they're down this year, but schools like Kansas, and they're down, but the name is there and people recognize it because it went away.
You're still a blue blood, right? You're still a blue blood,
Yeah, it
right?
went away. It went away under, Stan Heath and John, what was that guy? John Gooberhead. I've gone brain.
Pelfrey?
John Pelfrey.
Sorry.
John Pelfrey. And then Mike Anderson came back and he kind of had to dig the program out of the ashes, and they won games. They just didn't do well in the tournament. And Mike was not a great recruiter. He went after certain kind of players, but he didn't get the kind of players, in my opinion, that are going to get you wins in the NCAA tournament. It took Musselman to do that.
Yeah, it did.
And then he came in and made use of the portal, which Mike Anderson didn't have available to him.
Yeah, I think, again, I go back to this. You have to give Eric Musselman a whole lot of credit for putting this program back on the map, so to speak, you know? Back on the map. The Bionic Pig asks, do you feel Adu Thero back next season? Do you feel we get Adu Thero back next season? Barring he puts up 30-plus in the Sweet 16, he is completely dropped out of most mock drafts due to his absence.
I don't think you and I, either one of us, believe he's going to the NBA next year, but I think there's a question of whether he's back or not, and it's not just him. If you look, and Cal made reference to this the other day in a press conference. He was talking, and he said, look, I've got to decide who I want back from this team, and I've got to come up with a way to make that happen. But the way he said that, it led me to believe he expects one or two of these guys maybe to jump.
I mean, it does.
This is the last chance to really make some money in the portal. I don't think you're going to make a lot of money after this in the portal. So a DJ Wagner, for instance, he's become the point guard, and he's really good at it. You can see him getting better and better at it every week. Well, Arkansas is the top freshman point guard in the country coming in next year. Does he want to share playing time with this guy? It would be good to have them both. And I'm not saying Wagner would leave, but if Cal wants him to remain, I think you're going to have to throw some pretty big money at him.
I think so too, especially because he could start somewhere else.
Yeah, so Billy Richmond, what if somebody says, I'll pay you more than you're getting, and Cal goes, well, he's good, but I got to do this or that. So as close as these guys are, I don't think all of them are coming back. That John L. is gone, and Jonas Adu is gone because they don't have eligibility left. But he's already signed 3 guys, and he's trying very hard to sign a 4th. And if you get those 4 and you only have 2 leave, something's got to give there.
Yeah, something has got to give. We'll see
now,
what happens.
I will say this: he got a bunch of guys in 12, 10, 11, 12, and 13 that aren't really players. They're walk-ons. Yeah. So maybe he's got more room than we think.
And I think also, remember, he did make the point that he's going to do it differently next year, where he thought he could only get 9 guys, right? He was like, 9 guys. I just need 9 guys.
He might want 9, 10, get a little greedy.
9, 10, 11, maybe let's get some depth, right? Let's get some depth back on this team. And so I think so. We talk about Adu Thero. He says, barring he puts up 30-plus in the Sweet 16. That's even if he plays in this matchup, since that is still a question of concern.
And I think you don't think that he will. You're not.
I haven't seen what I have witnessed and what I've seen. We didn't get to see practice on Friday, but again, I've been an investigative journalist here.
Right.
I looked in the video that Hogs Plus put out, and all I saw really was him on the bench dribbling. I didn't see much. Okay. So that doesn't make me feel
good. And Cal
good.
made a reference. He didn't do anything to convince me.
Exactly. So he is sitting there going,
What it looks like is he's still limited in his mobility.
Yes.
And you're not going to play in a Sweet 16 game with limited mobility.
That's what I agree with as well. So I think they're maybe trying to get him back. I think we'll see on Wednesday, because Wednesday is open practice. I'll be there. So I will have a better idea of if he'll play or not on Wednesday, because we'll see how much he's participating in that open practice. Marty Bird's Proxy says, old school / old man question, what has happened to the travel call all across basketball?
Well, it's probably in reference to that, and you remember the game. I'm bad.
Maryland, Colorado State.
Where a buzzer beater was actually, when they looked at it later on, there was a travel before the buzzer.
Well, it definitely was a traveling call,
before the buzzer beater. So,
yes.
But are they going to wave that off? That's the thing. What referee is going to wave off a game-winning shot because the guy
They haven't called it all year long. You look at other games. That's my point to these people on the internet that are going, to travel. Go to the other games and look at it. How many times have they called that this year? And people then they're arguing about a gather step, right? Well, he had a gather step. That's not a rule in the NCAA,
Right.
people. That's not a rule in the NCAA. It was a travel.
And they didn't call it.
And they didn't call it. Okay.
And you see it there, but I also see it anytime. I see it a lot in the lane and especially in and around the rim. You get a guy that goes in, he's trying to attack the basket, or maybe he comes down with a rebound and he's got 3 guys around him, but he's still trying to figure out a way to score, and he's moving and maneuvering, and so he'll pivot one way, try to pivot another way. And if you watch that, a lot of times 2 things go on there that are both against the rules.
Okay.
One of them is you walk and it doesn't get called, and the other is you're in the lane for 8 seconds.
Yeah.
And they don't call that either.
But that happens. Watch any other, like, people are all up in arms, and I get it. It was the play, it was the game-winning play. So yes, you're gonna feel very upset about it if you're a Colorado State fan. You're gonna feel very upset about it. But it happened. It's done.
Yeah.
Just chill.
It's like
calm down.
Arkansas football fans talk about that Auburn game several years ago where they just got hosed.
Yes,
It was just a terrible call.
It was, and like, we're not going to go back and fix it.
It's
not
over.
Gonna,
It's
over.
over.
It's done. It didn't get called. Everyone chill, okay? Sorry, I argued with a lot of people on the internet about that last night. Big Feet wants to know, what are your first impressions of the Arkansas new women's basketball coach, and Kelsey Musick? She got her introductory press conference today.
Yeah, if we go back to, and you'll talk more about this because you were at the press conference, but we go back to when this first started coming up, when Mike Neighbors was let go. What we've heard is that Neighbors was probably safe until John Calipari thought he had a really good chance to get Molly Miller out of
You
Crane.
mean Hunter Yurchek had a really good chance?
What did I say,
John Calipari. But that's okay. If John Calipari is hiring our new women's basketball coach.
It's like I'm the one that had jet lag and you don't have it. They thought Hunter Yurchek thought he had Molly Miller at Grand Canyon wrapped up, and so it looked like that's what it was going to be for a while. Now there's a theory that he ends up paying Musick $600,000 a year, and there's a theory that Molly Miller wanted more than that, but I think your explanation that you kind of got was that she wanted more NIL money or money within the program.
Yes, yeah, that's what I was told through some sources, that maybe the NIL for Arkansas wasn't as good as the NIL at Arizona State.
And again, we have to distinguish between NIL and revenue sharing, because you ended up getting told that she will have some revenue sharing money.
I was pleasantly surprised by this, because it was one of my questions to Neighbors when he left was, is women's basketball going to get a piece of the pie with revenue sharing? He had told me yes, and he was told by Hunter Yurchek yes. Hunter Yurchek did confirm today that they will get a piece of the pie of revenue sharing. It won't be the biggest piece of the pie, of course, but they will get something.
Yeah. Now, as far as her as a coach, I talked to somebody that's, this guy's been a referee at women's games. He's coached junior women's teams. They have a tournament called the Showcase, where they go out and there's all these players out there, and college scouts go out and look at all these girls. And he says that she has been out there doing the work for years, because she didn't just pop up at Oral Roberts. I think she was at Western Oklahoma. Where was she? Southwest Oklahoma State?
Yeah.
Is that where she was?
Yeah, well, she was at Oral Roberts for 3 seasons.
And then before that?
Yep.
And when she was at the D2 school, she went to the D2 NCAA, or the D2 tournament, the national tournament, 6 years in a row. And the last year, which was 2019, they made it to the championship game. Now, they didn't win the championship, but made it. So she's done the work at that level. Then she gets to the Division I level and has it. If you look at her, if you go back and look at her whole career, here's what you see over and over again. When she goes to school, first year not too good, second year much better team, third year is when they're really successful, and that's recruiting. You go out and you get your recruits, you work with them, you're better the next year, and then you're really good the third year. I think based on that, that's what you're going to see with her at Arkansas. Start off maybe with a modest improvement the first year, then much better the second year, and then the third year is what you really look at. And if you're not patient, then I don't know what to tell you. But you don't just immediately turn this thing around. The program is in bad shape right now because they don't have any NIL money.
And that's the thing. We knew that coming into this season. We knew that. We've been very honest about the NIL situation. I think so has Coach Neighbors in this past season. If you go watch his press conferences, he was very honest with us about the NIL situation. And so that, to me, people have asked me how I feel about this women's basketball hire. And the thing I've told everybody is, if you cannot set up whoever you get with good NIL, then I don't care who you hire. They are already going to be at a disadvantage. Right. So I think that, however, if she's getting a piece of revenue sharing, great. That's a good tick for me. Yay, good. If the community can rally behind them, and I've already heard some people who are already trying to figure out some NIL ways they can raise money for women's basketball. I just talked to Kenneth Carroll, who said, hey, let's try and get a music act thing going for women's basketball. So there's people who are motivated to raise the money for them with this hire. That, to me, is going to be crucial in her success. Right. Crucial. Because you can be a great recruiter. You can. But if you don't have the money to offer these girls,
the SEC. That's the problem she's going to have. And at the other two levels she's been at, she has been able to find these overlooked players and get them there and win with them. Now she's really going to have to do that, and it gets more difficult at an SEC level.
It does, and she did talk about that in her press conference. That's over on our website for anyone who wants to go watch that. She said, I know it's going to be a challenge. I know that being in the SEC being in the best basketball conference in the country is a challenge. And so she seems really motivated. Hey, as I say, give everybody a chance, right? Give everybody a chance. We'll see how it goes. As Giles says, with the excitement over making the Sweet 16, don't forget about baseball, right? Yeah, we can. Because look for them to move up to number 2 in the nation after sweeping South Carolina. They did move up to number 2.
They did move up to number 2. They also moved into a first-place tie in the SEC with Tennessee, Georgia, and Texas. The surprise was Texas taking 2 out of 3 from LSU because LSU was number 2, and they were undefeated. So now Arkansas has moved past them by getting the sweep in the conference standings, and they moved ahead of them and moved up to number 2. So and Tennessee lost a game. So
that's right, yeah.
So Arkansas is in really good shape. The best news, though, that I've seen is I looked at these latest stats. Arkansas's team batting average is up to .332. We talked about them being 4th in the SEC last week. They're now 2nd.
That's awesome.
In batting, .332. Just not too long ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, I don't think it was a month, but their team batting average was .269. Now it's up to .332. Now, why did they make that jump? Because Dave Van Horn was moving people in and out of the lineup, trying to figure out who his best hitters were. And he went through that process, and this is coaching. Now, when it really counts and you're in the SEC, you've got your best lineup, and your team batting average against better pitching has gone up to .332. They are also 3rd nationally now in home runs with 56 home runs. Gosh. I mean, they're hitting over like 2 home runs a game.
It's crazy.
And some people have said, well, I thought we weren't supposed to hit home runs this year. Nobody said you're not supposed to hit home runs. You're not supposed to hit home runs when that's all you do and they're solo home runs. You can get 5 solo home runs in a game and score 5 runs and get beat 6-5. So what they've done this year is they've gotten lots of hits, they're hitting lots of doubles, but they're hitting home runs too.
Yeah.
And they are just so far burying teams with runs. I mean, you know, the only issue that I see is the team, and it's really an issue with the starting pitching, the starting rotation. Yeah. All 3 of those guys sort of have problems right now. But the overall team ERA is 3.43. That's because of the bullpen. Some of these starters have been bailed out lately by the bullpen, but also what difference does it make if your ERA is 3.43 when you're scoring 10 runs a game? You're still winning by 7 runs.
Yeah, when you're averaging 10 runs a game, that's
offense solves a lot of pitching problems. But look, when you look at, I think, and Phil Elson, who's the play-by-play guy on radio for the baseball team, I was on the radio with him earlier this morning. He believes they're going to make at least one change in the rotation. He didn't say who. Gabe Gackle is a likely target. His ERA is up to 6.57. He's 1-0. He's never lost.
Yeah.
But he gets bailed out. What happens in these games where he does this, the relief pitching comes in and it's good, and they score a ton of runs, so it doesn't get a loss. Beetelsheeds.
Beetelsheeds. I got you. Landon Beetelsheeds.
Yeah, Beetelsheeds.
There you go.
Why not just Beetlejuice? I get this
You're
wrong.
going to call him Beetlejuice by the end of the season. It's fine.
He's given up 6 home runs, in 6 games. But he's 3-0. Think about that. He's given up 6 home runs in 6 games. He's 3-0. His ERA is just under 4. And Arkansas's bullpen has helped him, and the hitting has helped him. And then Zach Root, he's 3-1 with a 4.02 ERA. He's the only starter without a loss.
Or with a loss.
Yeah, with a loss.
Yeah.
And I think he may be the one to stick, because keep in mind, Gage Wood is going to be coming back at some point.
Yes.
And he could end up in that lineup starting rotation too. I think Root's the one that stays, primarily because he's got 46 strikeouts to just 9 walks.
Wow.
In spite of the fact that he's had some issues, that part is good. Aiden Jimenez, he's a good candidate maybe to start this weekend. Doesn't mean he will, but he's got an ERA of 1.35 with 17 strikeouts and just 2 walks. And also Gage Wood, even though he only pitched in 2 games before he got hurt, 13 strikeouts to 1 walk.
Yeah,
I think that's what Van Horn is going to look at. What is your strikeout to walk ratio? Because when you start walking people, that's when you start giving up the home runs and the doubles and the triples, and that's when you lose a ball game. So the pitching could be a real problem if they were hitting like last year, but they're not hitting like last year. And so, again, when you're scoring 10 runs a game, you can solve a lot of pitching problems.
Yep.
And their bullpen has been really good.
Mike, can I ask a question? Where's the Fire Nate Thompson crowd?
There was a joke. I think you saw a joke
Yeah,
post.
some joke people that were joking about Fire Nate
Said
Thompson.
fire him, but I think that was a joke. Yeah, I mean, it's all turned around now. it's now turned around on Matt Hobbs, and everybody's mad at him.
Yeah, but it's just funny that crowd was very loud at the beginning of the season, and now they've kind of calmed down a little bit. So.
And by the way, the record that they have right now is a record.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this is the best start they've ever had.
Oh, that's great. Well, that's good to know,
That's
too.
saying something considering this program.
Hey, I'd love to. Hey, it's all about the SEC play, right? Once again, a great conference, and you got to see how they do fare up there. Okie Farm Boy. That's a great name.
I'd like to meet this guy.
I would like to meet this guy, too.
He sent me an email. I don't know
He
how
sent you an email?
I don't know how he found my email.
Okay. I don't know how I found your email either. That's pretty impressive for an Okie Farm Boy here. Whenever Arkansas struggles in football or basketball, my dad always blames it on the curse of Nolan. You say the curse of John White. Which is it, and what is that all about?
Okay, that all started when Nolan was fired, and then Stan Heath came in.
I've heard the curse of Nolan, yes.
Yeah, and then Stan Heath wasn't any good, and then Pelfrey wasn't any good, and then the program went, and then they just started applying it to everything. Football went bad,
Yeah, the curse of Nolan, yeah.
It's just Nolan, you treated Nolan badly, and it's not that Nolan cursed them, it's that they're being treated badly because of what they did to Nolan. So that everybody just used that. When things went wrong with a program, whether it was basketball or football or whatever, women's sports, it was always the curse of Nolan. I referred to it as the curse of John White because he's the guy that fired Nolan. Why dump this off on Nolan? You blame it on the guy.
Nolan wants the success of the program.
He didn't go, okay, I'd love to be fired. I mean, he did say, fire me if you pay me my money, but he wasn't serious about that. So that's what I refer it to. Now, look, if there is a curse, and I don't believe in curses, but if there is a curse, it's gone into hiding.
Yes, it has.
Because,
there you go.
I mean, basketball is back big time. Baseball is back big time. And even football, they won a bowl game. They've got the best portal class. And Pittman has been good with these portal. This is the best one he's had. And a lot of people are sleeping on this football team right now.
Okay.
But I'm telling you, watch out. They're about to get better. They've got a returning quarterback who spent last year adjusting to being in the SEC. They've got good backup, at least 2 good backup quarterbacks. They got 3 or 4 running backs. They've got an offensive line, I promise you, is going to be way different than the ones you just saw.
Brought in some good receivers as well.
Some good receivers. Linebackers are solid. It looks like now like the D-line is looking a lot better than they thought. The one area they may have to go get help was at cornerback.
Yeah.
They've got a kid that came in from Auburn that was pretty good.
Caleb Wooden, yeah.
And so that's okay, and they're trying to get at least one more kid out of the portal an experienced player. They want an upperclassman because they've got some good young cornerbacks, but they need experience back there. But I think football is going to be good.
Okay.
So if you got baseball, basketball, and football all going, I mean, how is that? The curse of Nolan has just been buried, or the curse of John White, or whatever you want to call it.
I'd love to see what we were talking about next week, because again, if you had asked me when the basketball season started and this team started 0-5, I told you were crazy if you told me this team was getting to the Sweet 16.
Oh yeah,
I would have told you
absolutely.
You were crazy. And so if they can get, let's say
I said they had no chance of going to the NCAA tournament. I said it twice.
Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy to see where they've gone and what they've been able to do. And so, yeah, I kind of agree with you. I mean, wherever they go now, I think the curse of Nolan would definitely be
So
lifted.
we got to find out something that's the opposite of that. It's not a curse, but it's like the blessing of something.
The blessing of, I don't know. What's a good thing? What's
I don't know. We got maybe people will give us ideas.
Yeah, give us ideas. Instead of the curse of
There's
Nolan,
this good karma thing that's now taken over. So
yeah, good karma. So who is it? The blessing of who? Who is
who caused this to happen?
Yeah, who caused this to happen? Let us know in the comments.
You're not going to get some of these football fans to go along with this because they still are convinced that Yurachek needs to go because Sam Pittman can't coach.
Well, there's a lot of people there's a lot of people who think a lot of things on the internet, Mike. You know that best as I do. But I want to know, if you had to say the blessing of something, what would you say it's the
What's
blessing
caused
of?
this sudden resurgence in basketball, and then baseball is really good? Of course, they've been good all along, but they're now better. They couldn't hit, and all of a sudden they can hit. Well, how'd that happen?
I don't know. I need them to get back to Omaha this year. That's what I want. They need to get back to Omaha.
So you want to go to San Antonio?
Yes, for the Final Four.
And then
correct.
you want to go to Omaha?
Let's do it. Let's go to Omaha too.
And where would the national championship in football be next year?
Oh, is it still, I don't know where it is next year. I'd have to look.
You have to look it up.
I'll have to
You
look
might could
it
go
up.
to all three places.
Oh, you're saying a national championship in football, Mike. You're getting a little crazy talk here.
Yeah, but if we have this, whatever it is, this blessing thing, this new thing that's just descended upon the program where it's just blessed.
All right, Lon, slow down. We'll see what happens. We'll see if the Hogs can make it to the Final Four.
We still got problems with baseball or softball. We still got some problems with gymnastics.
They won the
They
series over
did, but
Tennessee.
they got off to a rough start. And then gymnastics is good, but they're kind of down at the bottom right now.
Right, but they still made regionals.
They made regionals. They're the number one team in the country now.
They are, but that's still good.
Yeah.
That's still good. So, I don't know.
What about tennis? What's that doing?
I think tennis is okay. We'll have to check.
Swimming okay?
I'd have to check.
Track. They're still up there.
Track. Well, they had a bad run at the national championship.
That's all right.
So.
Anytime you finish second or third, it's still.
Well, you mean fourth?
Fourth, third, second. I'm just saying that track got to a point where it was disappointing if they didn't win.
Well,
but
track felt the curse of Nolan because that series of events.
You cannot win every year. You just can't.
I know, but that 4x4.
What amazes me is they continue to be up there.
Yes, they continue to be the elite program that they are. So, anyways, give us what you think in the comments. If it's not the curse of Nolan, it's the blessing of who for Arkansas? That's our question for you this week. We'll see you next Monday to answer more of your questions, though.